Welcome to the Kokomo Lantern. I'm Pat Muncie, publisher of the Lantern, and with me is Howard County Sheriff Jerry Asher. Mr. Asher is seeking re-election to the position of sheriff on the Republican ticket. Thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate that very much.
So let's get right into it. How long have you been with the Howard County Sheriff's Department?
Well, Pat, I'm glad you asked. Been here a little bit over 27 years now. So I started in the jail January 3rd of 1995. Then was a 911 dispatcher during that time as well. And then I got hired as a deputy in July of 1996. Spent some time as a patrol officer during that time, and then was promoted to a corporal in 2000. Spent some time on midnight shift. And then in 2004, under Sheriff Marty Talbert at the time, was promoted to a lieutenant over the training section. Then in 2008, after retirement, I became the patrol commander during that time. And then Steve Rogers was elected sheriff and then took over in 2011. I became his chief deputy and continued to be the patrol commander during that time as well, up until obviously 2018 was elected sheriff and took over January of 2019 as the Howard County Sheriff. So
it seems like you've held just about every position or held a position in every branch of the Sheriff's Department.
I have. Yes, I have. So that gives me a lot of experience. Obviously, the last a little bit over 3 years as sheriff, current sheriff now, and then a lot of experience over those 27 years of seeing not only the jail, but dispatch, all three shifts on the patrol, administration with training, the patrol, and then as a patrol commander, and then also as a chief deputy for Steve Rogers for 8 years. So
how do you feel all that experience assisted you in these first 3 years as sheriff?
Yeah, first 3 years has obviously been interesting, as we've spoke earlier. I think it gives me a well-rounded experience, so I know where I came from, and I haven't forgot where I came from. I think is one of my biggest things is I've got get good at personal relationships, especially with the correctional staff. You know a lot of people, know a lot of names, so I think it's important to do that, and dispatch as well, and then the patrol second as well. So I think, like I said, over those 27 years, seeing every avenue of the sheriff's office gives me a lot of insight, a lot of experience on what people expect of us out in the street, what my staff expects of me every day as well. So
what would you say are your largest accomplishments as sheriff?
Largest compliments, like I said, it's been an interesting first 3 years to say the least. COVID-19 is, I don't think anybody obviously expected how that has kind of impacted law enforcement with losing a lot of staff to that illness, and then having them be out for sick leave and those kind of things, and then just dealing with the public during that time has just been an interesting time. I don't think anybody's, let's say a modern day sheriff, has not had to deal with some of those things since probably early 1800s or so. But I think some of the major accomplishments I've had is starting the Violent Crime Task Force. So we were able to get a grant through the federal government to hire 5 new deputies. We've looked at trends over the last several years. I think if you look at the newspaper and news and see how much violent crime, goes on in either our community and some of the larger communities as well, is something we needed to tackle. So a lot of gun things that are going on. You look at, the situation that happened with the youth and at the Kokomo Beach last year. And those are tragic events that we don't want to see anything happens. So that's, as our staff got together, there's a situation we need to tackle, and that's what we need to go after. So I think that's a big accomplishment to hire those 5 new deputies. So that gives me, a few others. We've got one right now in the academy that's still getting ready to get out on the street here in a few months. And they've, as you saw, I think you printed some of those stats that we did.
Sure.
For just the first 6 months of that, quite a few arrests, 202 arrests during that time. A lot of guns were taken off the street. Narcotics were taken off the street. A lot of good things happened. And I think that could be just expanded on. That was just the first 6 months of getting it started.
Right.
And that's something I think we need to continue. I think it's good for this community of the entire Howard County to be able to tackle some of those gun violations things and some of the serious crime that are going on as well.
Now, do you feel like crime was on the rise prior to your election, and how do you think crime is trending now?
Well, I think crime is still trending. Obviously, drugs and alcohol is obviously a huge problem, not just in Kokomo, not just in Howard County. That's a across the country thing. So if you look at my incarcerated inmates, most of those are obviously pretrial detainees. You could look at pretty much any of those charges, and then you could probably take that back to drugs and alcohol. So that has been a huge problem, like I said, not just in Kokomo, Howard County area, but it's just across the country when those things come in. And obviously that has trended up. We see a lot more, murders, homicides, gun violations in our community, and then and others as well. And that's just a tragedy that we're going to try to avoid as best we can.
So how are you as sheriff over the next 4 years, if elected, going to reverse that trend and reduce crime in Howard County?
Well, that's always a hard question to answer as far as trying to reduce. But I think getting our patrol officers out, getting the task force out to get those guns and things off the street. We got a great drug task force in the city of Kokomo. Got a great police force. Doug Stout as the chief. It's got a great group of folks at the Kokomo Police Department. We got the Indiana State Police that come in our area as well. Getting those patrol officers out on the street, getting the task forces out, serving warrants, making site arrests, getting drugs. Obviously no fentanyl, carfentanil. Some of those things are extremely deadly, and that's something that I look at numbers from the coroner's office. Dr. Steve Seeley kicks those numbers out quite often. He just gave last year's figures, and we see where a lot of those overdoses, you've got the methamphetamines, the heroin, the opioids, a lot of those things are still floating around there, and then you add a fentanyl to it, and that's just a shame that we're seeing either young people or anybody dying from those things. And that's something that I take to heart. I love this community. I want to serve this community. I have served it well for over 27 years, just the last 3 as sheriff. And then I obviously be reelected again this year, and then serve another 4 years as sheriff. So that's important to me to be able to do that. So I think just getting our officers out, giving them the tools to say, here is what we need you to get out and do. The warrants, the site arrests, getting the drugs, the guns, and those things off the street, I think it's going to help us all.
So is it fair to say that you have some unfinished business then to attend to?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think in law enforcement, public safety, you ever have finished business. You're always going to be working towards that. Public safety, obviously, is our number one priority. For the sheriff's office, I've got a fantastic group of folks, a little bit over 150 employees. Most people don't even think that how many employees the sheriff's office, they see the patrol officers out on the streets, and they think that's what the sheriff's office is. Well, we have a lot more moving parts than what most people think. I've got 27 patrol officers, but then you've got, quite a few people that work in the jail that most people don't get to see. Another 24 people working in dispatch that most people don't get to see. So somebody has to answer those 911 calls.
Right.
So 24 hours a day, somebody is sitting in those seats. So that was an interesting time, like I said, with the COVID time, when a lot of people were at home 24 hours a day. Somebody was either at the jail or in dispatch working with the civil process, with the court security. A lot of moving parts that we have to get through every day, basically. So
if there are one or two things that you would like the voters to keep in mind about you going into this primary election season, what would those be?
One of those things, like I would say, is a very approachable. I think I'm very approachable. If somebody calls up, I try to answer those phone calls the best I can, and do that. Very approachable there. I think just dedicated to public safety is an important thing. Like I said, we've got a great group of employees all across the sheriff's office that their number one goal is public safety, and I think that's what a sheriff's out there for. I take it very serious. Like I said, adding that violent crime task force, I think, is important. a lot of different things that we've done. Body cams, that's a hot topic when it comes to transparency with law enforcement. That's something that I've added since I've taken over as well. That's helped us out with evidence processing too. So I think just using those body cams as a transparency I can see what my officers are doing. We can use those for training. And then we can use those for court and prosecution as well. Obviously, you want to make an arrest, you want to see that through prosecution and get that person off the street if that's what it comes down to. So I think that, starting the body cams is an important thing. Substance abuse, mental health, obviously was a big part of Sheriff Steve Rogers when he was sheriff. It's a big part of what I have done as well. We've got a full-time mental health therapist at the jail, which has only started the last couple of years since I've taken over, and then 24-hour nursing. So, 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you never know what that's going to be. So as of today, I've got 419 inmates incarcerated, and you just never know what's going to happen. Mental health wise, just physical wise, with some of the inmates. So I think that's important. So we try to get help with medically assisted therapy in the jail, because we know that there's a lot of substance abuse problems out there, and we try to do the best that we possibly can. With Turning Point, that it started the systems of care, and Turning Point, I worked closely. I was in a meeting this morning with Matt Oliver, Ashley Shove, Sherry Rail, all from Turning Point, the systems of care. We're talking about the recovery center, the recovery drop-off center that's getting ready. Well, they're in construction of doing that right now. So I was in early on meetings with the community foundation looking for ways to help this community, and that was one of the things that came out of the law enforcement section was having a place like that. So right now you can either drop somebody off in jail if that's what it takes, or you can take them to the hospital for some kind of emergency care. We were looking for some kind of intermediate help for law enforcement, and this drop-in center I think is going to be a great thing. I said was in a meeting this morning about it, and hopefully they're going to get that thing going before the end of the year. I think the plan is around July of doing that, and that will be open 24 hours a day. They'll have medical there, they'll have security there, where a law enforcement officer can come across somebody out on the street and maybe they need some mental help that they need to go to talk to somebody, or maybe they need some sort of substance abuse situation. I think that Turning Point Recovery Center is going to be a great thing. It could be a good referral for a patrol officer to come across somebody that maybe they don't need to be incarcerated, or maybe they don't need to be taken to the emergency room. They need something to do that. So I think that's something that's big that we can do.
That's a whole story right there.
That's a whole story that I don't think we have that kind of time to do that. So,
well, I appreciate the time that you have given us today, and I hope that our viewers at home appreciate that as well. So, again, this is Sheriff Jerry Asher. He's running for re-election on the Republican ticket this May, and hopefully we'll be hearing more from him and from his competitor, Harold Vincent, also running on the Republican ticket in the coming weeks. Again, this is the Kokomo Lantern. I'm Pat Muncy, publisher, and thanks for your time.